What up, pupils? It is I, Zycon Evan Flow, and for anyone tuning into this here transmission for the first time, this is the first official episode or first part of an infinitely growing series, or I don't even know what to call it. The title, working title, is Iris on the Eye. We're gonna be investigating, reviewing, reacting to conspiracy style or critical cultural phenomena, whatever I find interesting or deem worth reacting to. One of my biggest hangups with reaction content, that not consuming it but like creating it, has just been like, I gotta sorry, I thought my thing was gonna fall, but I gotta find it interesting and like want to talk about it. Like, I did this one thing where it was like Irish on the trend. If you want to fucking, you don't have to, but it's just like talking about what's trending. Like, I don't give a shit. I don't like to think the way that like things that are trending are like what normal people are into, and like I'm not normal. Look at the fucking look at the getup I got on a fucking Saturday morning just to fucking like come talk to you about this thing that's important. I have been consuming podcast content and found this podcast through the algorithm. It's called the Something McCormick Show. Oh, one sec. It is the Peter McCormick Show. He is interviewing they're journalist, but I think she's an actual journalist, because I wouldn't consider anyone who works for a mainstream media outlet to be a journalist these days. They're just propagandists for the government or the factions of the government that are authoritarian fucking psycho sociopaths and allegedly may or may not be PDF files. If you know what that means, you know what that means. You're hip in jive. I'm slowly but surely aging out of the cool fucking kids club. I'm almost 30 years old, which is mind-boggling. And to anyone who's younger than me, like, who hasn't even hit 20 yet, like, it's coming. It's coming. You can't. The time only moves in one direction, kid. So, whatever. Any hoozles, we'll get into it. This is a clip that I just like chunked out from the thing, so it might be kind of whack at a sync. I am just like doing this for the first time, like I said. So, without further ado, let's get into the what are we calling it? The secret network, or this woman's research Whitney Webb, that she gets into how Jeffrey Epstein got away with what he got away with for as long as he did. So, let's do it.
Is it even possible to understand what the mandate of the CIA is then? Because it seems very...
Well, it's supposed to be to protect American national security. But national security for a long time has been this huge catch-all,
Yeah,
right?
of course. Yeah, that's
and
what
the
I mean.
U.S. has justified all...
Yeah, so if you're completely unaware, that is exactly what she is saying. And like the thing he had said about the mandate of the CIA, it's like the reason it exists, the fucking, if it's supposed to exist, it's supposed to do these things for the American people, but the intelligence agencies, the alphabet soup of intelligence agencies, the FBI, the CIA, the NSA, DARPA, all of these things that say that they're working in our interests of national security, are just, well, at least specifically the CIA is, it's just this like power arm of this, like, she describes it as a meta cartel, which is just such a phenomenal way if I've ever heard it talked about. It's this global interwoven, interlinked like thing that just transnational corporations have transcended and are no longer limited to national boundaries. So they have so much power and money and influence that they can get together in secret fucking rich people meetings, the Bilderberg groups, the Trilateral Commission, the World Economic Forum. All of these business people get together and just decide based on what's good for their bottom line, or depending on how crazy you want to allege their beliefs are, just centralizing power and control into fewer and fewer hands, and that's the CIA is just this like hodgepodge of people that collect information on targets and assets and people so that they could control and like make the world a easier place to make money for the people that want it to be that way.
Sorts of things under the guise of national security, and presumably continued to do so. So I don't really give that a lot of weight. I mean, so as an example, like the Reagan administration, when Iran-Contra was being investigated, there was a line of questioning brought up about how the group that was responsible for that in the Reagan administration had developed something called the continuity of government protocols, whereby under a vaguely defined national emergency, basically the entire American Constitution could be suspended. Pretty scandalous stuff. And one of the examples...
Yeah, I mean, that's like uber messed up, like not okay in any way, shape, or form. That like here in the contiguous and other 250 states, Alaska and Hawaii included, that like we're supposed to have like the rights and everything, but and like the people founding fathers like knew this when they were creating the country, that it's just like governments forever, whether they be kings or people we elect, like they just will always take more and more of our freedoms and rights and like these things that the government, that like it's supposed to be that we're giving the government its power, but it's just become so incredibly enormous that it's like it just has the ability to feel like it can control us and take our stuff away. But it's like it's the Hegelian dialectic, problem, reaction, solution, that like they think of the problem and they know based on propaganda and Edward Bernays propaganda and public relations that it's like what our reactions are going to be based on our psychology, and then create the solution that they've from the beginning. They go backwards of like, hey, we want this outcome, so like what problem can we create so then people feel like this is the solution that we've already like come up with. So we're just trying to like basically fight back. This is the point of this series in a way. It's just first create awareness, and then hopefully slightly be entertaining, and like I can make some money and I fucking get to a point where like build things that are outside of their bounds, because their whole thing is to just like force us into smart cities by 2030, which is, you can look that up, hopefully I have somewhere on screen as I'm saying it. And then as she's talking about these things, I'll also hopefully be linking to it. And she's got some books that you can check out. I would recommend them. I haven't read them yet. I probably should. It would make me sound even more intelligent and unrelatable to girls that I want to be intimate with, or fucking normal people. But I'm here to fucking overthrow the Illuminati. I ain't here to fucking like be loved by the masses.
Of this vaguely defined national emergency was a widespread, nonviolent opposition to U.S. military intervention abroad. And when a congressman tried to ask Oliver North about this at the Iran-Contra trial, they basically shut down the hearing under the guise of national security.
Shocker. Like it's just so, he's just like, it shit just writes itself. It's just like, yeah, well, fucking problem. Don't want people to know about it. Just say it's false and you can't know about it. It's national security.
But
It's crazy.
Well, if you think the economic strength of the US is national security, that's a catch-all for protecting
the American multinational corporations that openly admitted, if you believe peace, are intermingling with the state-owned companies of China and Russia are ostensible adversaries.
But you can justify the protection of a multinational in another country by changing the administration, and you could...
Or re-domiciling them, sure, yeah.
Or allowing or turning a blind eye to banks banking money from drug trafficking.
Yeah, of course.
And so it then creates a different set of rules for those within the elite gang of what they can and can't do, from what you and I as
Yeah.
mere plebs.
So, taking this back to the Epstein scandal, I think that's why they only want to keep the discussion at sex trafficking.
Yeah, this is the whole notion of rules for thee, but not for we, and it's the George Carlin bit that, like...
It's a big club, and you ain't in it.
There's, like... I don't know if it's going to be in this clip, but in somewhere in our podcast, I remember them saying it's like a big yacht. That once you get on it, you get access to all the dope shit that's on the yacht. But then the yacht goes, like, into the middle of the fucking ocean, and you're like, oh, God. I want to, like, get off and go back to, like, normal society, or just like go anywhere else that's not on the yacht. And like, if you try to get off the yacht, they're like, you gotta swim, or we're gonna fucking, or you like trip and fall and like hit your head and fucking end up with a in a noose with a shotgun blast to your chest. So it's like, yeah, once you're in, you're kind of in for life, and you can kind of fuck up and like get kicked out. The way getting kicked out is like you end up like Jeffrey, best protect your neck, unlike Jeff in jail. Quoting one of my own songs because I'm a dork like that, but
Because it's wider than sex.
Because it's wider than that. Epstein was absolutely doing a lot of really shady arms trafficking stuff and financial criminality, and they have no interest in getting deep in the weeds there.
Because that exposes...
Yeah, I didn't know he was doing arms trafficking. The financial stuff, there's enough, like, not... like misinformation or misdirection of people denying that he was like good at it, but this woman is like kind of lays out that he was probably actually pretty good at like hiding money, or like I think, yeah, I don't know again if it's gonna be in this clip, but she says that she says that he says he was a like financial bounty hunter, that basically rich people would commit fucking trying to steal each other's money basically because it's just a dog-eat-dog cutthroat world these mother truckers are living in. But it's like, if he says that that's what he was doing, and other people, and he did work for people that were super wealthy, and like he probably was at least slightly knowledgeable. So that because there's people who claim that he not was not the case, but just it's like the whole like it's spy versus spy, man. It's just like, you got to use your own discernment, your own judgment, your own intuition to like kind of figure this shit out for yourself. But like, everyone has their own bent, and I'm just giving you my perspective and way that I see the information as the ball lies.
There's other people.
Sure, absolutely. And basically, this illusion that our world operates the way we're told it operates.
Yeah, but I think we know it doesn't anymore. Like, the veil has been lifted. I think the only worry is we move on so quickly, we just forget about this Epstein thing, and it's just this thing in the past. Yeah,
it's been pretty persistent in not being forgotten about, which I think now, in the case of the Trump administration, they really wish people would move along and forget about it.
But it does feel like
it's never going away. It's never, and I will, unless they put me in the ground, I will never drop this bone, dog. I'm telling you right now, as my power and influence continues to grow, I'm never gonna get on the yacht and do any of this shit. I think integrity is going to be like the social currency of the future, and that like, man, dude, I always want to be an outsider. I don't want to get involved in politics and like be part of the fucking noose tie wearing sect of human beings that like try to control the world. But like, dude, somebody's got to like eventually put these people in jail and like come for the whole. It's got to be like a RICO case where you just get like everybody. And like, one thing I think that actually does need to get overturned is the ruling that corporations are people, and that like corporations should not exist in perpetuity forever, like, because that's never been a thing. I mean, it used to be, I don't know when the laws were changed, but like, it used to be that a corporation could exist for a certain period of time and then it would be dissolved. And like, I think we need to kind of go back to something like that, where like people can get together to make money and like do things that benefit the world, but there's no reason that it should just be forever. That like nothing, the only thing that's forever or permanent is change, which is the paradox of truth, or whatever. Is an important thing philosophically, I think, to marinate in your mind and think about. But yeah, like no other things go on forever in the world, I don't think. Maybe if you can think of something, you just let me know in the comment. But I'm trying to keep this short, but I'm already at like 15 minutes. I got like 11 more minutes of this clip. This is going to be like a fucking forever video. Oh my God, I hope.
For ever since Trump came out, the last few weeks, it feels like it has been going cold. People have been talking about it a bit less.
Yeah, maybe. Well, I mean, so much is going on in the U.S. with U.S. policy that it's, stuff that's huge news, it gets end up buried a few days later. And, a decade ago, it would have been a huge multi-month long story. Now it's just a blip. I mean, the news cycle is just so fast, too. So, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why that could be. But, I mean, I think also just because, it was the Epstein case was particularly popular with Trump's base, less so with the Democratic base. Now a lot of the influencers in that media circuit are either being like, yes, it was a hoax, or are, have moved on to other things.
Because the trail's gone dead? Like, what else we can keep asking questions.
Well, I don't know what you mean by trail going dead. I mean, I think it's pretty clear that the administration does not plan to release further documents, and they've said that.
Which is just such a bummer. And this is fucking put it on public record. It's a little embarrassing. It feels a little embarrassing, but like I voted for Donald Trump the first time, 2016. I think I was like 18, 20 years old. I was like gung ho. I'm like, oh, he's gonna drain the swamp, do all this dope stuff, or he's gonna actually go up against the PDF file elite. And then like obviously the stuff comes out that like he's kind of in on it, and he's probably factionally on one of the sides. And that like the kill QAnon movement was, once it like became very apparent that he like wasn't doing that to the extent that I want to see the fucking power structure and bloat and corruption like removed, I was like, oh, he's controlled opposition again. And that like whoever was running that psychological psyop for the CIA or alphabet agency, whatever people were running that shit, like it was just so like, oh, they got me. And I lost a friend about it, and like one day I hope to reconnect with that guy and apologize for how fucking like ridiculous I was being at the time. But like you just fucking, I had so much hope that it was like really gonna like actually like be different, but it's like there's no one coming to save us. No aliens are coming down and fucking solving all the problems for us until we like solve the problems mostly for ourselves. And then maybe once we're like psychologically and spiritually responsible enough to like handle the level of like power that alien technology, or like just in general, alien technology would like bestow upon us, because that's also a thing I think that they've been suppressing for however long, that like then they'll come and show themselves to us. Because it's like up until that moment we would just, there'd be so much chaos, like people would like, some might try to start worshiping them as the old gods, or depending how far you want to go into like Nephilim and like the Anunnaki and Nibiru and all of those beautiful things that are, I think, closer to the truth than what's foisted upon us in the mainstream. But trying to stay on topic with this thing.
Yes, there's this planned congressional hearing where they've subpoenaed the Clintons and some other things, some other people, but I anticipate that'll be a pretty controlled hearing. I don't think you're going to hear any questions about Mark Middleton or Chinagate there, or what Epstein was doing those 17 times he went to the White House. It's all going to be about everything that happened after Clinton was no longer president, which is, if you look at how the Epstein case has been treated with respect to Bill Clinton for years now, it only focuses on Clinton after he left office. It's the same for Bill Gates, too. They only focus on the Gates-Epstein relationship after Gates was no longer chairman of Microsoft.
So it's plan controlled, a trickle of information, feeding scraps to us?
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's defining the spectrum of what's allow what's interesting. It's a limited hangout, so it's like they find some tidbits that are interesting within a spectrum, and people are so entranced by what's in that spectrum, they don't look for anything beyond that. They just assume that's all there is.
Yeah, it's it's like what is that term? I can't even think of the thing right now. Oh, but it's like, if I give you option A and B, you'll never think that there's an option C, basically. And it's if they set the bounds of the conversation to only be this big, if there's just something very important that's outside of it, most human beings won't ever be like, hey, but what about that thing that's not here, because they frame the conversation to be limited in that way.
Because if we know everything, it opens up everything. It's Pandora's box.
Well, it is a Pandora's box in a way. Yeah, sure. Because basically, if you go, as my books show, if you go as deep as I went in writing those 2 books, and you could certainly go deeper, it basically shows that, the world is...
You can go deeper, but you might end up with a fucking... might not end up in a good way, if you know what I'm saying. Like, the power and espionage and mafiosos types, and fucking six miles out, 8 feet deep, baby.
Basically run by a meta cartel.
Explain that.
Well,
a cartel.
I would argue, it is a cartel. It basically operates with impunity, and they have no accountability for all of their crimes, even when they're exposed here and there. Some people just are protected and above the law, almost inexplicably. And as I point out in my book, it's a lot of the same actors over and over again, the same institutions, and you can see when one institution crumbles, another one pops up in its place. So as an example, in the book, I talk a lot about the Bank of Credit and Commerce International, BCCI, that implodes in 1991. It's covered up by William Barr when he was Attorney General, who covered up Iran-Contra, the Promise Software scandal, and BCCI, all as being Attorney General, and later would return to kind of do that and for Trump 1 when he was Attorney General again. But after BCCI implodes, a lot of their portfolio of, organized crime and shady interests goes to the banks of that are sort of related to this guy named Edmund Safra. And Edmund Safra dies in his home, supposedly from, the story is very bizarre, but from arson allegedly set by his American nurse because she wanted to set a fire and then save him from it, but then didn't save him from it. Yeah. It's fine. Anyway, he was very good friends.
Right. It's those things where it's just like they do the same thing over and over and over again. Like that Jack Oswald, whoever they said was the patsy that killed JFK, something Oswald, I can't remember his first name right now. That like it was just one guy, and it was just like it was just a fire that his maid set, and like but the maid wasn't strong enough to pull him out of the fire, which is like how that it just seems so stupid. And that like Jeffrey Epstein himself in jail, it's just like, bro, get out of here.
With Robert Maxwell and a lot of these figures that pop up all over the place in the Epstein case. And then who absorbs his banks? HSBC. They basically take those.
I at least know Robert Maxwell is because Lane, whatever her name is, Maxwell's father, and he was like worked for the intelligence agencies of Israel and the Mossad, or it was like either it's one of those things where it's like it's a murky kind of thing where it's like he worked for them, but he wasn't like he collected intelligence for them. I don't know, was he specifically an agent? Did they payroll him, or was he blackmailed? It's like this whole world is like once you're on the yacht, you can't get off the yacht.
Over, and then HSBC gets exposed. I forget. I think that it wasn't the Panama Papers, but it was like one of those consortium of journalists that published these leaks. Basically, revealed a lot of prominent people that were part of these HSBC Swiss accounts that had been inherited from Safra. Epstein was one of them. Some associates of Epstein, like Flavio Briatore, are there. But also, HSBC was laundering money for drug cartels. And who didn't go after them when they were in charge of the Bank of England? Mark Carney, who is now Prime Minister of Canada.
And everyone's leaving.
And while he was head of the Bank of England, there's pictures of him hanging out with Ghislaine. Who's, Father Robert Maxwell was banked by Safra.
Which is so crazy, isn't it? The world we live in, that like you could do all of the crazy shit that she just said, and then become the prime minister of a fucking country. Like, dude, it's just so crazy. It's the best and worst time ever to be alive, but I think it's always been that way for people. That's just, whoo, baby. Oh, man.
Among other things. So.
Well, I remember him from my childhood because he was a prominent figure in the UK, owning
of course.
the Mirror Group, and waking up one day and his body's found in the ocean. Mm-hmm. Another suspicious death.
Yeah, Ghislaine thinks it was rogue Mossad agents and Sicilian mafia hitmen that killed him.
Together?
Working together. It's kind of funny because that's kind of the thesis of my book. It's like the National Crime Syndicate, which was the Italian mafia, their New York branch, and later their head got deported to Italy and sort of set up shop there. And then the Jewish mob that was headed by Mayor Lansky. And that basically this crime syndicate is the crime syndicate that teamed up with, the intelligence agencies. Because this Operation Underworld, all of that, the formation of this nexus predates the founding of the State of Israel. And so a lot of these actors, and I note this in my book too, were involved with the arming of...
That's super, super crucial. I myself need to look into Project Underworld because it's alleging, or I don't know how much proof is in the pudding just yet, but that, like, yeah, dude, the mobs, the organized crime, which was a conspiracy theory up until I think the 20s or 30s. I don't remember. There was a big chunk of time where like people like knew the mob existed, but it was one of those things where they would laugh at you and tell you were crazy and like say that it wasn't really a thing. But that, like, what you just said, the Italian and the Jewish mafia like basically get a green light and like get recruited or become part of the criminal network that the CIA is also involved in and are like intelligence agencies. And like once you fuse together the government's like, what is it, monopoly on power, and then these things that are supposed to be fighting against the government's monopoly on power, that like it all just becomes one giant disgusting like swamp of like not totalitarianism, but like authoritarian fucking like bootlicking like ridiculousness, where it's like I still want to have like some sense of like pride as an American for the culture and like the way of life and like all quote unquote all the freedoms, but it's like, dude, this shit is so messed up, man, that like there's these fucking like literal criminals, and then there's the criminals that we like think are okay because they wear suits and ties, are working with the exact criminals that like we think should be in prison but aren't, because they're like got a fucking handshake deal of like, oh no, you're okay because you're in the group. Like, oh, it's just so dumb. The Haganah and these paramilitary groups that later create Israel in 1948 and then help them set up their intelligence agencies. So that's sort of how you get all this overlap between, Mossad, Britain, CIA. It goes back to, the beginning of Israel's national security complex, really.
I have this picture in my head of like a huge wall of pinballs with bits of string tying things together, but I think it all exists in your head. It doesn't
all exist in my head. I mean, I have to put it on paper and plan it out too. I don't do the stereotypical, the conspiratorial pinboard thing. That's like the Always Sunny in Philadelphia meme. Like, I don't do that, but I mean, some of it does require mapping out, because I mean, think about how these people operate. These people could not have gotten away with all of this as it wasn't for mazes of holding companies, shell companies, Byzantine offshore banks, and I mean all the other things that enable financial criminality in today's world. So obviously the connections are similarly going to be labyrinthian and Byzantine, but they are there.
Okay, but how do you make sense of it all? Because it is a large, complex network of people, institutions, politicians, billionaires. How do so many people get away with it?
I basically feel like I pretty convincingly show in my book that there's a lot of baton passing going on between the generations. So like my book starts in the 40s, and I follow a lot of these institutions and people through the years. So, you know, I talk a lot about how a figure named Roy Cohn, who...
That's the crux of it right there. It's like a multi-generational, familial, and if you know things about the Illuminati and Satanists, that they're obsessed with bloodlines and keeping it within the family. And there's a podcast that I eventually will be reacting to on the series where hopefully it's on screen as I'm talking about it. I don't even remember what it's called. I got to go back and find it, but it's like the guy is just like goes into how like weird and crazy the things that they do to their kids are, and why people like Epstein or Ghislaine or anyone who gets like basically groomed, not so much in the sense of the PDF file word of it, but the way that you would like train someone to fill in a role, that like they do some crazy shit to these kids just to like make them stay within the parameters of the game, of the way that they've been playing it for, she said, the 40s, but I mean this shit I think has been going on way before that. Like the Bulgarian Illuminati was in like the 1700s, and like secret societies have always existed. It's just like now the technology, Palantir and freaking all the NSA, all these things that like spy on us, they just finally I like to call the Nazis wet dream, that like if that totalitarian regime could see the technology as it existed today, and I'm sure that they had messed up people who were already like thinking about it and dreaming it up then. And obviously Operation Paperclip, we brought them in and installed them into our fucking NASA and all of the other intelligence places. We put Nazi scientists that like they created it after the 40s or during the 40s. So it's like, oh, it's just such a crazy thing. And all the way to fight it, get right with God, meditate, be healthy, and don't spend your dollars at Amazon. Figure out ways to like support people and keep your money separate and free from their crazy, ever-reaching, controlling, octopus arms institutions of just tyranny. What I can offer to you if you were feeling black-pilled right now.
He's Donald Trump's mentor, and how he passed a lot of things on to Trump. How a lot of people that were in Cohn's network got involved with Robert Maxwell. Robert Maxwell hired them when he came to the U.S., including figures like Robert Keith Gray, that were PR executives on their face, but also tied to the CIA, involved in sex blackmail, close friends with William Casey, who was CIA director under Reagan, among other things. And how they, got involved with Maxwell's entry into New York City, which is how, mainly how Ghislaine got so enmeshed in New York society, and also, teamed up with Epstein in that same period of time. So, all of this matters, and these connections are significant because this baton passing shows that this is a generational thing. And in the case of Maxwell, Robert Maxwell's children, at least the ones that were close to him, because you have two that sort of splintered off from the larger Maxwell clan, but are very open that, after he died, they were trying to figure out how to rebuild his empire and using his Rolodex of contacts to rebuild that. And they did it. In doing so, you have Ian and Kevin doing all this interesting financial stuff after, their father's death. And then the twins, Isabel and Christine, make this search engine company and get involved with Microsoft and Bill Gates and all this stuff back in the 90s. And Ghislaine Maxwell was reportedly involved in that too. And then also very involved with Epstein and all sorts of other things, and eventually becomes one of the main people at the UN developing sustainable development policy for the world's oceans.
How do you get in this gang? Like, how does that happen? And how do people know they can start acting with How is
So
impunity?
the best analogy I've heard for that is actually from the journalist Nick Bryant, who's the guy
Okay.
that published Epstein's Black Book with Gawker and the flight logs, among other things. And he also wrote an amazing book on the Franklin scandal, which is about this extremely insane sexual blackmail and sex trafficking pedophilia network, really, that was active in D.C. In the 1980s during the Reagan era. And he basically had someone explain it to him. I forget who his source was, but it was basically, imagine it like you're on a yacht and, you're invited on this yacht, and then you can do whatever you want while you're on the yacht, but you try and get off and you'll drown, or they won't let you get off. You'll be popped off if you try and leave. So as long as you're like in the club, operating within the club's rules, you can act with impunity, but there's certain things you can't do in order to enjoy that impunity.
So yeah, that what a perfect thing. Yeah, we started with, and that's the thing I'm referencing in it. So yeah, this is like a 15-minute little thing, 15 maybe 13 with minus the ad. But yeah, that's just this one snippet of a 2-hour conversation. I was very informative. The link is in the description, so if you want to watch the full thing, you can. I want to read her books. I wish I could, like, I don't know, like, he did a great job talking to her, and, like, no one's really gotten any solutions other than just, like, live your best life and try to peacefully, what was the thing that Gandhi did? Civically disobey the government, because the government is one of the arms of the nexus that's connected to the nexus of this, like, gang, transnational globalist fucking cabal thing, that they just want all of the power and control for themselves, and they don't want anybody to fucking be free and cool and not have blackmail on them. So, like, I think that's, I kind of got to end it at some point. I was trying to make this 30 minutes, but it ended up being a little, like, 40. I guess bro, if you made it this far, God bless your heart. I guess I'm going to end it the way that I end the podcast and the vlogs. Let's see. How does that whole little ritual go? Smile more, complain less, never ever ever give up until you discern for your darndest best. Namaste, have a great day. Slop shoot if it's nighttime soon. Like, share, comment, subscribe, keep the algorithm satisfied. And if I don't see you while I'm alive, I'll catch you on the flip side after I die, baby. Let's frickin' go. Mahalo, aloha. I'm just here to overthrow the Illuminati and fucking have fun, and I hope you want the same for yourself. Peace out, people. Bye.